The spaceship shuddered slightly as it entered the atmosphere of the distant planet. Dax Ren stared out at the swirling clouds below, his hands gripping the edge of the console. He had been hired to deliver a package, nothing more. A simple job, as usual. But there was something about this planet that felt different, something that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. The planet, called Katara, was known for its ancient cultures and mysterious rituals. It was a place few humans ever visited, a place where even the most experienced traders and explorers rarely set foot. The Kaitarians were an ancient species with customs far beyond what Dax was accustomed to. And yet, here he was, about to land on their sacred grounds to deliver a simple package. Nothing could go wrong, right? As the ship touched down with a soft jolt, Dax grabbed his bag, a little too eager to get this mission over with. The sooner he completed the delivery, the sooner he could leave this planet behind. But as soon as he stepped off the ship, he knew something wasn't right. A tall Kaitarian woman stood in front of him, her eyes glowing a bright yellow, her skin a pale, shimmering gray. Her long, dark hair flowed around her shoulders, and her body was adorned with intricate tattoos that pulsed with an otherworldly energy. Her face was beautiful, but cold. Her presence was intimidating, almost otherworldly. "I am Lady Valera," she said, her voice like silk, smooth and commanding. "You are the human who dared enter our sacred lands." Dax took a step back, unsure of how to respond. "I'm just here to make a delivery," he said, trying to sound confident. "Nothing more." Lady Valera's eyes narrowed. "You broke the sacred law of Kaitara by entering our territory without permission. You have committed an unforgivable offense." Dax's heart skipped a beat. He didn't know much about Kaitarian law, but he knew he had made a huge mistake. "I didn't know," he stammered. "I was hired to deliver something. I didn't mean to." "You broke the law, human," she interrupted. "And now you must pay the price. You must claim me completely." Dax's breath caught in his throat. He had heard rumors about the Kaitarians, about their customs and their strange rituals, but nothing had prepared him for this. He wasn't sure what she meant by "claim me completely," but it didn't sound good. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice tight with nervousness. Lady Valera took a step forward, her eyes locking onto his. "You have broken the law of our people, and in doing so, you have dishonored me. The only way to atone for your offense is by claiming me as your mate. You must complete the bond, or face the consequences." Dax felt his stomach drop. This couldn't be happening. He was just a delivery guy. He didn't want to get caught up in some alien ritual, but here he was, stuck on a strange planet with a woman who seemed intent on making him her mate. "No way," he said, shaking his head. "This is insane. I'm not getting involved in whatever this is. I'm just here to deliver a package. That's all." Lady Valera's eyes flared with an intense golden glow. "You do not understand, human. You have no choice. The laws of Kaitara are sacred, and they are not negotiable. The bond must be completed. If you do not comply, you will face punishment far worse than death." Dax swallowed hard. He could feel the pressure of the situation closing in on him. There was no way he could back out now. He didn't know what kind of punishment she was talking about, but the fear in her voice told him that it was real. "I didn't mean to break any laws," Dax said, his voice shaky. "I didn't know. I'll leave. I'll go right now. You can keep whatever it is I delivered. I won't tell anyone I was here." Lady Valera's gaze softened, but only slightly. "You cannot leave, human. You have already been marked. You are bound to this land now, and you will face the consequences of your actions." "Marked?" Dax asked, confusion overtaking his fear. "What are you talking about?" "The law of Kaitara demands that any human who enters our sacred Lands without permission must complete the bond with the first Kytarian they encounter. That Kytarian is me. Dax's mind spun. You can't be serious. You're telling me that because I made a delivery on your planet, I'm now forced into some kind of mating ritual? Yes, Lady Valera said, her voice cold and unyielding. You have broken the law, and now you must make amends. There is no other way. Dax took a step back, his mind racing. There had to be another way out of this. He couldn't just accept whatever this was. He wasn't some pawn in an alien game. But the longer he stayed here, the more he realized that he had no choice. He was trapped. Dax stood frozen in place, his mind racing. He couldn't believe what Lady Valera had just said. Claim me completely. It felt like a nightmare. His heart was pounding in his chest, his breath shallow. This couldn't be happening. The Kytarians, as far as he knew, were a highly advanced species. They had been known for their strange, rigid customs, but this was a whole new level. He had come here thinking it would be a simple job, make the delivery, pick up the payment, and leave. But now, it seemed like his entire life was about to be flipped upside down. Look, this is all a misunderstanding, Dax said, trying to stay calm. I didn't know about your laws. I'm just a delivery guy. I didn't mean any offense. If you let me go, I'll leave your planet right now. No harm done. Lady Valera's gaze hardened, her golden eyes piercing through him like a blade. It is too late for apologies. The law has already been broken. You will now face the consequences. You will stay here and claim me as your mate. There is no other option. Dax's head was spinning. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. He had never heard of anything like this. A mating ritual. A law that forced someone into bonding with another species. This wasn't the kind of job he had signed up for. I'm not doing this, he said, trying to hold his ground. I'm not claiming you. I didn't break any law on purpose, and I'm not going to be part of some ... ritual. Lady Valera's expression didn't change. You have no choice, human. You have entered our territory. You have dishonored me by breaking our law. The only way to atone for your offense is to bond with me. This is not a choice. This is a necessity. Dax felt his pulse quicken. He had to think fast. There had to be a way out of this. He wasn't going to be forced into something like this. Not by some alien woman, and certainly not for a mistake he didn't even know he was making. His mind raced, searching for an escape. But every option seemed to slip away. The Kytarian culture was ancient, their laws binding. He had already been caught in their web, and now, it seemed, there was no escape. I can't stay here. Dax muttered, more to himself than to her. I can't be part of this. I have a life back on Earth. I don't even know how to survive in your culture. You will learn, she said firmly. In time, you will understand that this is not about survival. This is about balance. About bringing together two species for the good of both. You will see that this bond is for the future. Of our people, and for your own people as well. Balance. Dax scoffed. How is this about balance? You're forcing me into something I don't want. I don't even understand what's happening. You can't just make me your mate because of a law I didn't know existed. Lady Valera's face softened for the first time. Her eyes lost some of their cold intensity, and she took a step closer to him. I understand your fear. You are confused, but you will come to understand. The bond will make us both stronger. It will make both our species stronger. Dax took a step back, still shaking his head. I don't know what you're talking about. I can't just accept this. I don't even know you. I don't want to be part of some strange ritual. I just want to get out of here. You cannot leave, she said, her voice softer now, but still firm. The law of Kytara is clear. The punishment for breaking the sacred law is severe. There is no way to undo what has been done. The only way to move forward is to accept what is happening, and if you refuse, the consequences will be much worse. Dax's stomach twisted. He didn't know what the consequences were, but he didn't want to find out. There was a cold, frightening finality in her voice that made it clear this wasn't a simple misunderstanding. He was part of something far larger than he had realized, and he couldn't just walk away from it. "I'm not sure I can do this," Dax said quietly, his voice faltering. "I don't know how to accept this. I don't know how to be part of your ... your people." Lady Valera stepped closer, her gaze softer but still intense. "You will learn. You will grow to understand. In time, you will come to see that this bond is not something to fear, but something to embrace. For both our species, you are my partner now. You must accept that." Dax looked at her, and for the first time, he didn't see the cold, distant Catarian he had been facing for days. He saw a woman, a creature bound by her own laws, forced to follow a path that had been set for her long before she met him. The weight of her words sank in. "You're not doing this because you want to." Dax said softly, "You're doing this because you have to, just like me." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Yes, but it is not only because I have to, it's because we must. You and I are linked now. On whether you accept it or not, we must move forward together." Dax couldn't deny the truth in her words. He wasn't sure what the future held. He wasn't sure how to accept this strange bond that had been forced upon him. But one thing was clear. He was stuck. And for better or worse, he was now part of this strange alien world. Dax couldn't sleep. The weight of the situation was too much for him to handle. His mind raced as he lay in the bed he had been assigned in Lady Valera's quarters. But it wasn't comfort that he felt, only dread. The alien woman who had claimed him as her mate wasn't just his captor. She was a symbol of everything he didn't understand. He was trapped between his old life and a reality that seemed impossible. The days blended together in a haze. Lady Valera was always there, always watching him. The Catarians had a way of making their presence felt, even in silence. There was no escaping her. The ship's hallways, the ship's quarters, the mess hall, everywhere he went. She was there, her golden eyes never far behind. But Dax wasn't just stuck in this foreign world. The worst part was that he couldn't escape from his own mind. He kept asking himself over and over what he had done to deserve this. Why had he been chosen? Why had he, out of all humans, walked into this strange ritual? The questions kept swirling in his mind, keeping him up at night. It was the 5th day since his arrival on Kaitara, and he had begun to get used to the strange way the Kaitarians looked at him. He had started walking through the corridors with his head down, avoiding eye contact with the guards. He had learned the hard way that refusing to comply with the rules here was not an option. There was a way things were done on Kaitara, and he had no say in it. Dax sat in the room with his arms crossed, staring out the window at the vast expanse of space outside. His thoughts wandered to Earth, his home. He could almost feel the cool air and smell the familiar scents of the streets, hear the noise of the city. But now, the only thing he could hear was the quiet hum of the ship's systems and his own breathing. A soft knock at the door broke his train of thought. He turned, startled, and saw Lady Valera standing in the doorway, as always, her posture perfect and her eyes fixed on him. "I need to speak with you," she said, her voice calm and commanding as usual. Dax didn't feel like arguing. What was the point? He had tried before, but it had only led to more frustration, more confusion. Instead, he nodded, motioning for her to come inside. He didn't know what she wanted to say, but he knew it wasn't going to be easy. She walked into the room and stood before him, her presence filling the space with a weight he couldn't ignore. For a moment, neither of them spoke. It wasn't the silence of peace, but the silence of tension. The silence of two people stuck in a situation neither of them had asked for. "Have you thought about what I said?" she asked, her eyes narrowing. Slightly, Dax's jaw tightened. "Yeah, I've thought about it," he muttered, his voice edged with frustration. "But I still don't understand. You're asking me to accept something that feels wrong? You're asking me to be a part of something that I didn't choose." Her gaze softened, just for a moment, but her next words were firm. "You have already chosen Dax Ren. The moment you entered our territory, you activated the protocol. The bond between us was forged the instant you stepped foot on Kaitara. Whether you accept it or not doesn't change the fact that it has begun." "I didn't know about any of this," he snapped. "I didn't come here looking to become your partner, or whatever you want to call it. I didn't even know your planet had these laws." Lady Valera took a slow step forward, her eyes never leaving his. "The law of Kaitara is sacred. It has existed long before you or I were born. It has ensured the survival of our species for millennia. You did not know, but now you do. And now you must accept your role." Dax stood up, his frustration boiling over. "I didn't ask for this. I don't belong here. I'm not your mate. I'm not anything to you. I'm a human, and I don't care about your empire's laws." "You are my mate," she said, her voice lowering, the hint of steel in her tone. "And you will care. You are part of Kaitara now. There is no escaping that. Our people are bound together by this law. We must see it through." Dax clenched his fists, his pulse pounding in his ears. "I can't just forget everything I've ever known, everything I've ever believed, and accept this as my life. This is insane. I can't. You will," she said, cutting him off. "You have no other choice. The bond between us is stronger than your will. It is not about what you want, it is about what is necessary." For a moment, Dax stood frozen, staring at her. The words hung in the air between them, thick with unspoken truth. He felt the weight of her words settle in his chest, suffocating him. She was right. He had no choice. The law of Kaitara was clear. He couldn't leave. He couldn't fight it. The bond had been activated, and no matter how hard he tried to deny it, it was real. The universe, it seemed, had decided his future for him. Lady Valera stepped closer, her eyes softening just slightly. "You are part of me now, Dax. The sooner you accept that, the sooner we can begin the journey together. I will not force you, but you will not escape. We are bound." Dax stood in the silence that followed her words, his mind a whirl of confusion and anger. But there was nothing he could do, nothing that would change his fate. He was stuck. And whether he liked it or not, he had to find a way to live with it. Days turned into a blur of confusion and tension as Dax found himself unable to escape the oppressive atmosphere of the ship. His mind was a constant whirlwind of thoughts, anger, frustration, confusion, and even a strange, creeping sense of acceptance. He hated himself for feeling that way, but the truth was, the longer he stayed on Kaitara, the more difficult it became to ignore the reality of his situation. The more time passed, the more real it all felt. Lady Valera was always there, watching, waiting, speaking in that calm, commanding voice that made it impossible for Dax to ignore her. She didn't force him into anything, but the pressure was always there, looming over him like a shadow. Every time she entered a room, he could feel the weight of her presence, her authority over him. Every word she spoke seemed to reinforce the same truth he couldn't escape. He was bound to her. He was bound to Kaitara. It wasn't just her. It was the entire planet. The laws of Kaitara were sacred, and now so was the bond between them. Whether he wanted it or not, he was a part of this place now. And the more he fought it, the more the reality set in. He had to play along. He had to accept the inevitable. One evening, as Dax walked through the corridors of the ship, trying to clear his mind, he heard footsteps behind him. He didn't need to turn around to know who it was. He had learned by now that Lady Valera always followed him, always near. She never demanded anything directly, but her presence was as constant as the ship's hum. "You are quiet today," she said, her voice carrying the usual calm but firm tone. "Have you come to a decision?" Dax stopped, turning to face her. His eyes met hers, golden, glowing, unwavering. He wanted to shout, to tell her everything he thought about the situation. But he didn't. Instead, he just stared at her, his jaw set in frustration. "I've had to think about it," Dax said quietly. "I've had to come to terms with the fact that I'm stuck here, bound to you by some law I don't even understand. But I'm still not sure I can accept it." Alira took a step closer, her gaze softening slightly. "You do not need to accept it all at once. In time, you will come to understand the importance of this bond. This is not just about our species. This is about the future, for both our people." "I don't care about your future," Dax muttered, his voice bitter. "I care about my own. I didn't ask for this. I didn't choose any of this." "You did not choose the situation," she said. "But you can choose how you move forward. You will grow to accept this, Dax. You will see that this is what was meant to happen." The words rang hollow in his ears. It was always the same with her. No matter what he said, no matter how many times he tried to reason with her, she only repeated the same thing. "You will come to accept it." It was as if his feelings didn't matter, as if he were just a pawn in a larger game that he had no control. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration bubbling up again. "I can't keep living like this. You're not giving me a choice. You're forcing me into a bond that I don't want. I don't know how to make peace with that." Alira stepped forward, closing the distance between them. She was so close. Now that Dax could feel the heat radiating off of her. "You do not need to make peace with it. You only need to accept that this is part of who you are now. You are part of me. And together, we will ensure the survival of both our species." Dax clenched his fists at his sides, the anger threatening to spill over. But something in her voice made him hesitate. He didn't want to believe her, but what if she was right? What if this was the only way forward? What if he truly was part of something larger than himself, something that was bigger than his own desires? The thought gnawed at him, and he hated that it did. He hated that, deep down, he knew there was no easy way out. He had no control. He was trapped by something ancient, something sacred, something that had existed long before he even set foot on Kaitara. "I'm not sure I can do this," Dax said, his voice softer now, the anger fading into resignation. "I'm not sure I can be what you want me to be." "You will," Alira replied, her tone firm but gentle. "You already are. This bond is not about what you want. It is about what is necessary. You will fulfill your role, Dax, just as I have." Dax couldn't meet her gaze. He couldn't look at her and admit that part of him was starting to believe her. That part of him was starting to wonder if she was right. He had no choice but to accept this bond. He had no choice but to accept that his life had changed forever. Lady Valera reached out, placing her hand on his arm. The touch was light, but it sent a jolt of warmth through his body. "We are in this together now," she said, her voice low. "And together, we will make both our species stronger. You will come to understand why this bond is the most important thing in your life." Dax swallowed hard, his heart heavy in his chest. This wasn't a simple choice. This wasn't a job he could walk away from. His life was no longer his own. He had been swept into something far larger than himself, and whether he liked it or not, there was no going back. Dax couldn't sleep. Even as he lay in the cold, unfamiliar bed on the Catarian ship, the weight of his decision hung over him like a dark cloud. The more he thought about it, the more tangled his emotions became. He was trapped, both physically and mentally, in a situation he had never asked for. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Lady Valera's golden eyes, calm and commanding, reminding him that he was bound to her now whether he liked it or not. The bond, the sacred law, the mate. His mind kept circling these words, trying to find a way to make sense of them. But no matter how hard he tried, it always came back to the same cold reality. He was stuck on Kaitara. He was part of something much larger than himself, and he had no way out. The next morning, he found himself standing at the ship's control panel again, trying to distract himself from the heavy thoughts pressing on him. But nothing worked. His thoughts were always on her, on the bond, on the law, on the future that was now set in stone. He tried to focus on the task at hand, but it was impossible. A soft knock at the door interrupted his spiraling thoughts. He turned, expecting to see one of the Catarian guards or perhaps a crew member, but instead, Lady Valera entered the room. She was always so calm, so collected, but this time, Dax noticed something different in her demeanor. There was an intensity to her, a quiet urgency in the way she moved. "You're still resisting." "Dax," she said, her voice steady but carrying an edge that Dax hadn't heard before. "You still do not accept the bond between us." He clenched his jaw. He didn't want to admit it, but he was growing tired. Tired of fighting, tired of pretending that this wasn't happening, tired of the constant pressure. "I don't know if I ever will," he muttered. "I don't know how to just ... accept this. I didn't ask for it. I didn't ask to be part of your empire, to be bound to you." Illyra's eyes narrowed slightly, but her expression remained unreadable. "You do not need to ask for it. You were chosen. This bond is part of who you are now. Whether you accept it or not, it will exist. The laws of Kaitara do not give room for rejection. We are bound." Dax swallowed hard, feeling the weight of her words. She was right. He couldn't escape. His every attempt to run, to push back, had only brought him further into this strange, alien reality. The bond had already been forged. The laws of Kaitara were clear, and now he had to live with the consequences. "I'm not a part of your culture," Dax said, his voice shaking with frustration. "I don't understand it. I don't want to be part of something like this. I came here to do a job, not to become part of your people's ritual." "You are part of us now," she said firmly, her voice never wavering. "You are more than just a human. You are the future. You are the key to the survival of both our peoples." Her words hit him like a slap, but there was something in them that resonated. The future, the survival of two species. Dax didn't want to accept it, but the longer he stayed in her presence, the more he realized how important the bond was. It wasn't just about him. It was about something bigger, something that could change the course of both their worlds. "I don't know if I'm ready for this," Dax said quietly, his voice heavy. "I don't know if I'll ever be ready, but I'm here. And there's no way out." Illyra took a step closer, her eyes glowing softly. "You don't need to be ready. You just need to accept what is happening. You are not the only one who had no choice. The bond between us is not just a human issue, not just a Kaitarian issue. It is a matter of survival. We will make this work." Dax looked at her, his heart pounding. There was something about her presence that made him feel like he was part of something larger. But at the same time, it made him feel like a pawn in an ancient game he didn't fully understand. "Why me?" he whispered, more to himself than to her. "Why was I chosen for this? I don't even know you. I didn't even know your people had these laws. I didn't come here looking for this. I don't know how to be your partner. Lyra's expression softened for a moment. Dax saw something in her eyes, something that looked almost ... human. It was fleeting, but it was there. She took a slow step closer, her voice softening as she spoke. I did not choose this either. I was bound by the same laws. But together, we will fulfill our roles. Together, we will create something greater than we could ever do alone. This bond is not just about survival. It is about building a future. Dax stood there, his mind swirling with confusion. Could he really go through with this? Could he truly accept the bond, accept her, and embrace a future that had been forced upon him? The fear still gnawed at him, the uncertainty eating away at his resolve, but there was no going back. The bond had been formed. He was already part of something much larger than he had ever imagined. And no matter how much he resisted, he knew deep down that he was connected to this strange world, this strange woman, and this strange fate. I don't know if I can ever truly accept this, Dax said quietly, but I don't know if I have a choice. You do not have to accept it all at once, she said, her voice calm and steady. But in time, you will understand. You will see why this bond is necessary for both our peoples. And as she stood there, gazing at him with those golden eyes, Dax realized that maybe, just maybe, he had started to believe her. The days were blending together now. Dax had stopped counting them. It wasn't because he had accepted his fate, but because time had lost its meaning. Each day seemed the same, each moment stretching into the next, trapped between the walls of the Katerian ship. His life had been hijacked, his path now dictated by laws he had never understood. It wasn't just his physical body that had been claimed. It felt like his very will had been taken from him. Lyra's presence had become a constant weight on his mind, and with it, the pressure of the bond between them. It wasn't love. It wasn't even respect, at least not on his side. He had tried to resist, tried to push away from the inevitability of it all, but each time he found himself further entrenched in her world. And what was worse, he found that the more time he spent with her, the less he wanted to leave. It was confusing, frustrating, but the pull of the bond was undeniable. He couldn't escape it. He couldn't escape her. The more they interacted, the more he understood that she wasn't just an alien imposing her will on him. There was a deeper connection, a shared purpose that neither of them had chosen, but had no way of breaking. She was right, he had been chosen. He couldn't change that. He couldn't escape it. You're quiet again. Lyra's voice cut through the silence one evening as she entered his room, her footsteps light but firm. She had always known how to make an entrance, her presence filling the space even when she said nothing. Dax looked up, his brow furrowed as he sat on the edge of the bed. He had been trying to read some data on the Katerian ship systems, but his mind kept wandering back to her, back to the bond that had changed his life forever. I'm not sure what you want from me anymore, he muttered, his voice thick with exhaustion. I don't know how to go on living like this. I don't know what's real anymore. Lyra stepped closer, her golden eyes steady on his face. I know this is difficult for you, Dax. I understand your confusion. But this bond is not just about you and me. It is about our people, our future. I don't want this future, Dax said, his voice rising with frustration. I didn't choose this. You keep telling me that it's for the greater good. But how do I live with that? How do I just accept being a part of something I didn't even sign up for? Lyra stood there for a moment, silent. Then she spoke, her voice softer than before. You are part of something, whether you accept it or not. This bond is not just between you and me, Dax. It is between our peoples. It is the only way for us to move forward, to ensure that our species survive and thrive together. It is the sacred law of Kaitara. It was always meant to happen this way. Dax swallowed hard, the weight of her words pressing down on him. I didn't know your laws. didn't know what I was walking into. All I wanted was to do my job and leave. But now I'm caught in the middle of this impossible situation. You don't understand. I'm just a human. I don't belong here. You belong here now, she replied, her voice steady and certain. You are more than just a human. You are the key to our future, to the survival of both our species. Dax closed his eyes, his frustration turning inward. I don't know how to believe that. I don't know how to trust any of this. Everything feels like a lie, like I'm being manipulated. Lyra's expression softened, and she stepped closer to him, placing a hand on his shoulder. You are not being manipulated. I would never do that. I did not choose this either. But I will help you understand, Dax. You will come to see that this bond is not a curse. It is our salvation. He didn't know what to say. Part of him wanted to fight her, wanted to scream that this wasn't his life, that he didn't deserve this fate. But the other part of him, the part that was beginning to listen, to understand, knew she was right. The bond between them was real. It was sacred, as she kept saying. And there was nothing he could do to change it. I don't want to be your mate, Dax said, his voice hoarse. I don't want to be tied to your empire. I just want to go back to my life. I don't belong here. I don't belong to you. Illyra's hand remained on his shoulder, her grip firm but comforting. You do belong here. And in time, you will see that this bond is not about ownership. It is about partnership. We are stronger together. We were always meant to be. The words hung in the air between them, and Dax couldn't bring himself to say anything else. He didn't know how to fight this anymore. He didn't know if he even wanted to. But the idea of giving in to the bond, of accepting it completely still, terrified him. Could he ever see her as more than just the Kytarian who had taken him in? Could he ever be comfortable with the idea that he was now bound to her and to her people for the rest of his life? His thoughts were interrupted by Illyra, who gently turned him to face her fully. Her gaze softened, her golden eyes meeting his with something more than just duty. You will come to understand, Dax, she whispered. This bond will make us both stronger. You will not regret this. He didn't answer. He couldn't. He didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, he felt like he had no choice but to follow it. The days felt endless to Dax. Time was no longer measured in hours, but in the slow moments of silence that stretched between him and Illyra. She was always there, watching, waiting, speaking when necessary, but mostly silent. Her presence had become a constant weight on him. She wasn't just his captor anymore. She was the one person he had no choice but to rely on, the one who controlled his fate. And yet, it was not control that bothered him the most. It was the haunting realization that somehow, despite all his resistance, he was starting to depend. On her, the bond had been forged, not by choice, but by law. And though Dax hated to admit it, something deep inside him had begun to shift. It was more than just the fear of the inevitable. He had started to see Illyra as someone who, too, was bound by her circumstances. She had not chosen this either. Like him, she was a part of something far larger than herself. She was just as much a pawn in her people's struggle for survival. As he was in this strange ritual, Illyra had explained it all countless times. Her voice calm, her explanations logical and precise. But there was always a disconnect, a part of him that couldn't quite bring himself to accept it. He had wanted to run so many times, to escape into the vast expanse of space, to flee from his fate. But every time he tried, someone pulled him back, her presence. The bond. Days passed, and with each passing moment, Dax could feel the invisible thread that tied him to her grow stronger. He hated how familiar it was becoming. He hated how easy it was to sit with her, to hear her voice, without wanting to run away. But most of all, he hated the feeling of helplessness. knowing that his freedom was no longer his to control. One evening, the ship hummed softly as they sat together at a table in the dining area. The stars outside the window flickered like distant lights stretching endlessly across the black expanse. For the first time since he had arrived on Katara, Dax felt a strange kind of calm, though it was fleeting. He could hear the rhythmic sound of Illyris breathing across from him. And despite the silence between them, there was an unspoken understanding. She wasn't demanding anything now. She was just waiting. Dax, Illyra's voice broke through. His thoughts, and for the first time in days, her words were softer, less forceful. You have been silent for days. Your resistance is wearing you down. Why do you continue to fight this? Dax's gaze remained fixed on the stars. He didn't know how to answer. He wasn't sure if he could put it into words anymore. Don't know, he finally muttered. Maybe because it doesn't feel right. Maybe because I've never been forced to accept anything before. I've always been the one who makes the decisions, who chooses my path. Illyra's golden eyes watched him intently. There was no judgment, no anger, just quiet understanding. You were forced into this, I know that. You didn't ask for any of this, but the laws of Kaitara do not give room for those who wish to walk away. And the bond, it was never meant to be easy, but it is what our people need. What your people need? You will see that in time. He looked at her now, really looked at her, and for the first time, he saw something different in her eyes. It wasn't the stern, commanding look that had been there since they met. It wasn't the cold, emotionless gaze of someone who had no choice but to follow a path set for them. It was something softer, a flicker of vulnerability. She, too, had her own burdens, her own struggles. They weren't so different after all. You say that. ... We need this. Dax said slowly, his voice almost hesitant. But I don't understand. I don't understand how one mistake, one broken law leads to this. How does this bond solve anything? It's not just about you or me. It's about both of our worlds. It's the future of our people. But what if I don't want this future? What if I don't want to be part of this? Illyra didn't answer immediately. Instead, she leaned forward slightly, her golden eyes reflecting the dim light of the room. She took a deep breath and spoke with a calmness that both unnerved and comforted Dax. The bond was designed to ensure our survival. Dax, you were chosen, yes, but you were not just chosen for your strength. You were chosen because you have the potential to change things. Together, we can create something better. Our species, your species, ... We are linked now. And that connection can either tear us apart, or it can make us stronger. Dax swallowed hard. He wasn't sure if he believed her, but something about the way she spoke made him hesitate. She was right about one thing. Their future was tied together, whether he accepted it or not. Maybe it wasn't just about surviving. Maybe it was about something more. He didn't know what that was yet, but he knew he couldn't keep fighting it forever. He leaned back, rubbing his face with his hands. I don't know if I can do this, Illyra. I don't know if I'm ready to just ... accept this bond. I'm not sure I ever will be. Illyra's gaze softened, but her voice remained steady. You do not need to be ready, Dax. You just need to take the first step. It will be difficult, but together, we will face it. The future will not be easy, but it will be ours to shape. Dax looked at her then, not just as the Kaitarian woman who had claimed him, but as a partner, someone who was as bound to this as he was. For the first time, he didn't see her as an enemy or a captor. He saw her as someone who, despite the laws that controlled her life, was also just trying to survive. Just like him. Okay, he said, his voice quiet but steady. I'll try. I'll take the first step, but I'm still not sure what comes after that. Illyra's expression softened further, and for the first time, there was a hint of a smile in her eyes. That is all I ask. Together, we will find the way forward. For the first time, Dax allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, they could do it. Together.